Commander Zelthara floated in the command center of her ship, watching the blue and green planet below through the viewing screen. Her 12 vessels hung invisible in space around the world the humans called Kepler 442b. For 3 months, she had been studying this place from a distance, learning about the strange creatures that lived on its surface. The planet was not like the others her people had conquered. This was not a homeworld filled with billions of frightened civilians. This was a training ground where the humans taught their young warriors how to fight in space. The Zephyrian Empire had chosen this target carefully. If they could defeat the human military academy, they would learn exactly how dangerous these creatures really were. Zelthara had seen the reports from other worlds. Humans were violent, unpredictable, and seemed to enjoy fighting even when they had no chance of winning. Her people called them Deathworlders because they came from a planet that should have killed them long ago. Instead of dying, the humans had learned to thrive in conditions that would destroy most other species. The academy below housed about 800 young humans between the ages of 18 and 22. They were students, not real soldiers, which made them perfect for testing. Zelthara wanted to see how quickly human military forces could respond to a real threat. Every other species they had studied took at least 6 hours to organize any meaningful defense. Most took much longer. On the planet's surface, Cadet Jake Morrison was having a perfectly normal day. He had woken up at dawn, completed his morning physical training, and was now leading his squad through combat simulations in the Western Training Zone. Jake was 20 years old, tall and lean, with short brown hair and serious gray eyes. He had been at the academy for 3 years and was known for his ability to think quickly under pressure. His squad consisted of 12 other cadets, each specializing in different areas of military science. They had been working together for 8 months and had developed the kind of trust that only comes from shared hardship and countless hours of training together. The morning exercise was simple enough. They were supposed to locate and disable 3 enemy positions using only basic equipment and teamwork. Jake checked his watch as his team moved through the rocky terrain. They had been at it for 2 hours and had successfully taken 2 of the 3 targets. Amy Carter sat in the academy's main communications center, monitoring radio traffic from all the training units spread across the planet. She was a second-year cadet with bright red hair and green eyes that missed nothing. Amy had chosen communications as her specialty because she liked being the person who connected everyone else together. The communication center was located in the heart of the academy's main complex, surrounded by screens showing the locations and status of every training unit on the planet. On a typical day, Amy would handle routine check-ins, weather updates, and the occasional request for medical assistance when a cadet got injured during training. But this day was about to become anything but typical. The first sign of trouble came from the early warning system that monitored space around the planet. The system was designed to simulate real combat conditions by creating fake enemy contacts that the cadets would have to respond to. It was supposed to be a training tool, nothing more. Amy watched as her screen suddenly filled with red warning symbols. 12 contacts had appeared in orbit around the planet, all showing energy signatures that the computer did not recognize. The system had never generated this many contacts at once, and the energy readings were unlike anything in the training database. She stared at the display for a moment, trying to understand what she was seeing. The contacts were not moving in, the random patterns typical of training simulations. Instead, they were positioned in a perfect defensive formation around the planet, as if they were actually watching and waiting. Amy's training kicked in. She reached for the emergency communication system and began broadcasting on all frequencies used by the Academy's training units. Jake Morrison heard the alert through his radio while his squad was preparing to attack the third target. Amy's voice was calm but urgent as she spoke to every cadet on the planet. All units, this is Communications Central. We have multiple unknown contacts in orbit. This is not a drill. All squads report your status immediately and prepare for emergency. Defensive procedures. Jake felt his heart rate increase, but his mind stayed clear. In 3 years at the academy, he had never heard Amy sound like this. She was always calm during training exercises, but there was something different in her voice now. Something that suggested this might be real. He grabbed his radio and responded quickly. Communications. This is Morrison Squad. We are in the Western Training Zone, 12 personnel, all equipment functional, requesting immediate orders. Similar reports began coming in from training units all across the planet. 16 squads were currently active, scattered across 4 continents. In total, there were about 200 cadets in the field, armed with training weapons and basic survival equipment. Up in orbit, Commander Zelthara watched the human response with interest. Her ships had deliberately triggered the planet's warning systems to see how the humans would react. She expected to see confusion and panic as the young warriors realized they were facing a threat they could not possibly handle. Instead, she was seeing something that puzzled her. The human communications were organized and efficient. Instead of screaming for help or demanding evacuation, the cadets were reporting their positions and asking for orders. It was almost as if they intended to fight. Zelthara had studied dozens of species before they were conquered by the Zephyrian Empire. When faced with overwhelming force, most creatures either surrendered immediately or became paralyzed with fear. The human seemed to be doing neither. She activated her ship's sensors to get a better look at what was happening on the planet's surface. What she saw made her pause. The human cadets were not running or hiding. Instead, they were moving toward defensive positions and checking their weapons. Jake Morrison's squad had abandoned their training exercise and was heading toward the nearest equipment depot. The Academy had several such facilities scattered across the planet, containing everything from spare weapons to emergency medical supplies. Jake's tactical training told him that if they were really under attack, they would need more than the basic equipment they carried for training exercises. Lisa Harper, one of Jake's squad members, was an engineering specialist with short blonde hair and blue eyes that seemed to see mechanical solutions to every problem. As they moved toward the depot, she was already thinking about how the Academy's training equipment might be modified for real combat. "Jake," she said as they ran, "the plasma cannons we use for target practice have safety limiters that reduce their power output. If we can remove those limiters and link several cannons together, we might be able to create some kind of defensive grid." Ryan Brooks, the squad's technology expert, overheard her comment and nodded enthusiastically. Ryan was tall and thin with dark hair and the kind of intense focus that came from spending most of his time working with computers and electronic systems. The Academy's main computer network could coordinate targeting data between multiple cannon positions, he added. If we can establish a communication link between all the training units, we might be able to cover a significant portion of the planet's surface. Jake listened to his teammates as they reached the equipment depot. Around them, he could see other squads arriving at similar facilities across the planet. The cadets were not waiting for orders from high command or calling for rescue from the main fleet. Instead, they were doing exactly what their training had taught them to do. They were adapting to the situation and finding ways to fight with whatever resources they had available. This was not the response Commander Zelthara had expected from a group of students facing impossible odds. But then again, she was beginning to realize that humans rarely did what other species expected them to do. Commander Zelthara watched her tactical display with growing confusion. 20 minutes had passed since her ships had triggered the human warning systems, and the response was nothing like what she had expected. The young humans were not crying for help or trying to escape. Instead, they were doing something that made no sense according to everything the Zephyrian Empire knew about military behavior. The cadets were working together without any central command telling them what to do. Across the planet's surface, 16 different groups were moving toward equipment storage areas and beginning to modify their training weapons. The humans were acting as if they actually planned to fight 12 advanced warships with nothing. But Academy resources Zelthara had conquered 43 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire. She had seen species with advanced technology surrender without firing a shot. She had watched civilizations with millions of soldiers collapse into chaos when faced with surprise attacks. But she had never seen students respond to impossible odds by immediately beginning to build defenses. On the planet below, Jake Morrison's squad had reached the Western Equipment Depot and was working with desperate efficiency. Lisa Harper had removed the safety systems from 6 plasma cannons and was connecting them to a single power source. The modifications were crude but effective. Each cannon now had 3 times its normal power output. Ryan Brooks sat on the ground, with his portable computer, trying to establish communication links with the other training squads. The Academy's main communication system was designed for routine operations, not military coordination. But Ryan was finding ways to connect training, radios, personal communication devices, and even entertainment systems into a single network. "I've got contact with 8 squads so far," Ryan reported to Jake. "They're all doing the same thing we are. Harper's modifications are working, and 3 other engineering students are copying her design." Jake nodded and grabbed his radio. "All squads, this is Morrison. We need to coordinate our positions to create overlapping fields of fire. Each squad should establish a defensive perimeter around your current location, but make sure your weapons can support the squads nearest to you." The response was immediate. Cadets across the planet began reporting their positions and weapon capabilities. Jake realized that they were creating something that had never existed before, a planetary defense network built entirely by students using training equipment. Meanwhile, Kevin Zhang's squad was working at the Academy's main complex, trying to solve a different problem. Kevin was a logistics specialist, a thin young man with black hair and the kind of analytical mind that could see solutions others missed. He had realized that their improvised defense system would need a constant supply of ammunition and spare parts. The Academy's emergency food processors were designed to create meals from basic raw materials, but Kevin had discovered that the same technology could be used to manufacture other things. Working with 2 other logistics students, he was converting the food systems into basic manufacturing equipment. "We can produce power cells, ammunition, and simple electronic components," Kevin explained to his team. "It's not efficient, but it works. We just need raw materials." The solution came from an unexpected source. The Academy used automated maintenance, robots to keep the facilities in good condition. These robots had mining equipment for gathering raw materials needed for repairs. Kevin's team reprogrammed 6 robots to begin collecting metals and other materials from the planet's surface. Nicole Davis was working on a different part of the puzzle. She was a pilot training specialist, a young woman with short brown hair and the reflexes of someone who had spent years learning to fly in combat conditions. Nicole had realized that the Academy's flight simulators contained targeting computers that were more advanced than anything they had in their improvised weapons. Working with her team, Nicole was connecting the flight simulators to the defensive network. The simulators could calculate firing solutions, track multiple targets, and coordinate attacks between different weapon positions. It was like using video game equipment to run a real military operation. The simulators can handle at least 50 different targets simultaneously, Nicole reported to the growing communication network. "If we can get targeting data from the orbital sensors, we can coordinate fire from every defensive position on the planet." But the most surprising development was happening in the Academy's physics laboratory. Troy Martinez was a cadet who specialized in experimental technology, a young man who always seemed to find new ways to use equipment that others considered useless. He had been working with the Academy's gravity manipulation systems, which were normally used to simulate zero-gravity conditions for space combat training. Troy had discovered that the gravity systems could be weaponized. By creating localized gravity fields, he could deflect incoming projectiles or even trap smaller enemy ships. The system required enormous amounts of power, but the Academy's geothermal power plant could provide what he needed. "I can create gravity wells at specific points around the planet," Troy explained to his physics team. "It won't stop everything, but it might give us an advantage against smaller attack craft." Up in orbit, Sub-Commander Corthell was frantically updating his tactical analysis. The Zephyrian intelligence officer had been monitoring human communications and was reporting developments that seemed impossible. "Commander, the humans have increased their defensive capabilities by 400% in the last 30 minutes, Corthell reported. "They're using equipment that was never designed for military purposes, but somehow they're making it work." Selthara studied the energy readings coming from the planet's surface. The humans had somehow connected their training weapons into a coordinated network. More disturbing, they were continuing to improve their defenses even as she watched. "How many of them are there?" she asked. "Approximately 200 active combatants," Corthell replied. "But they're working with the efficiency of a force 10 times that size. They've established manufacturing capabilities, communication networks, and coordinated defensive positions. None of this should be possible with their available resources." What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that human military training emphasized adaptability and creative problem-solving. The cadets had been taught to work with limited resources and to find solutions under pressure. They had spent years learning to turn disadvantages into advantages. Lauren Reed was demonstrating this principle at the Academy's Weather Control Center. She was an environmental systems specialist, a young woman with long blonde hair and the kind of scientific mind that could see connections others missed. Lauren had realized that the Academy's weather satellites could be used for more than just climate control. Working with her team, Lauren was modifying the weather control systems to create an energy barrier around the planet. The satellites could generate electromagnetic fields strong enough to deflect most conventional weapons. It required precise coordination and enormous amounts of power, but it was theoretically possible. If we can synchronize all 12 weather satellites and connect them to the main power grid, we can create a planetary shield, Lauren explained to her team. It won't stop everything, but it will reduce the effectiveness of energy weapons by at least 60%. The most remarkable thing about the human response was how quickly information spread between the different groups. Jake Morrison's squad shared Lisa Harper's weapon modifications with every other squad on the planet. Kevin Zhang's manufacturing techniques were being copied at 3 other locations. Nicole Davis's targeting solutions were being implemented by pilots across 4 continents. The humans were not just building defenses. They were sharing knowledge, coordinating efforts, and constantly improving their systems. Every breakthrough by one team immediately became available to everyone else. By the 40-minute mark, the Academy's defensive capabilities had grown beyond anything the Zephyrians had anticipated. The humans had created a planetary defense network that could track targets, coordinate fire, manufacture ammunition, and even generate protective energy fields. Commander Zelthera watched her tactical displays with growing alarm. The human cadets had not just responded to the threat. They had turned a training academy into a military fortress in less than an hour, and they were still improving their defenses. The Zephyrian invasion plan had been based on fighting frightened students with basic training weapons. Instead, they were facing a coordinated planetary defense system operated by the most adaptable species they had ever encountered. For the first time in her military career, Zelthera was beginning to wonder if the Zephyrian Empire had chosen the wrong target. At the 50-minute mark, Commander Zelthera was staring at readings that challenged everything she thought she knew about military science. The human cadets had not only built a planetary defense system in less than an hour, they had created something that was actively getting stronger as she watched. The energy signatures from the planet's surface showed coordinated patterns that reminded her of the most advanced military installations in Zephyrian space. But this was supposed to be a training academy, operated by students who had never seen real combat. Sub-Commander Corthell approached her command station with a datapad full of readings that made no sense. "Commander, the humans have just activated some kind of planetary shield system. Our sensors show electromagnetic barriers covering approximately 70% of the planet's surface." Zelthera looked at the tactical display showing the energy field surrounding the human world. The shield was not perfect, but it was strong enough to deflect or absorb most of the weapons her fleet carried. Creating such a barrier should have required specialized military equipment and months of preparation. "How are they powering it?" she asked. "They've connected their weather control satellites to the planet's main power grid," Corthell replied. "The system was never designed for this purpose, but somehow they made it work. They're using equipment meant for climate control as a defensive weapon." On the planet below, Lauren Reed was monitoring the shield system from the Weather Control Center. The energy barriers were holding steady, but she knew they could be improved. Working with her team, she was making constant adjustments to increase the shield's effectiveness. "The electromagnetic field is stable across all 12 satellite positions," she reported to the communication network that now connected every defensive position on the planet. I can redirect power to strengthen specific areas if we detect incoming attacks. Jake Morrison received Lauren's report while coordinating fire control for the Western Defense Zone. His improvised command post was now connected to every other defensive position on the planet. The communication network that Ryan Brooks had built using spare parts and determination had become the nervous system of their planetary defense. All positions, this is Morrison. Jake spoke into his radio. We now have shield coverage and coordinated targeting. Each zone should focus on your assigned orbital sectors, but be ready to support other positions if needed. The response was immediate and professional. Cadets across the planet confirmed their readiness and reported their weapon status. Jake realized that they had created something remarkable, a military force that operated with precision, despite having no official chain of command. Lisa Harper was putting the finishing touches on her latest modification to the plasma cannon network. She had discovered that linking the cannons in groups of 3 created a focusing effect that dramatically increased their range and power. Her weapons could now engage targets in low orbit, something that should have been impossible with training equipment. Jake, we've got enhanced targeting capability, Lisa reported. The focused plasma arrays can reach orbital targets up to 2,000 kilometers altitude. That covers most of the space around the planet. But the innovation that most surprised the Zephyrian observers was happening at Kevin Zhang's improvised manufacturing center. His team had expanded their operation beyond simple ammunition production. They were now creating entirely new components for the defense network. Kevin had realized that the Academy's 3D printing systems, normally used for creating spare parts and educational models, could produce complex electronic equipment when supplied with the right materials. His mining robots were delivering a steady stream of raw materials, and his manufacturing systems were turning them into everything from targeting sensors to communication relays. We're producing targeting upgrades for the plasma cannons, Kevin reported to the network. Each new sensor package increases accuracy by 15%. We can have them installed at all positions within 30 minutes. The cadets were not just maintaining their defenses, they were constantly improving them. Every few minutes, someone would announce a new breakthrough that made their entire system more effective. Nicole Davis had made the most significant advancement in targeting capability. Her flight simulators were now connected to the Academy's astronomical observation equipment, giving her access to telescopes and sensors that could track objects across the entire star system. I've got precise locations on all 12 enemy contacts, Nicole announced. The astronomical sensors can track their movements and predict their flight paths. We can target them accurately, even if they try to maneuver. Troy Martinez's gravity manipulation system had evolved from a simple defensive tool into something much more sophisticated. Working with the physics team, he had created gravity fields that could do more than just deflect projectiles. They could actually trap enemy ships or redirect their movement. The gravity wells are operational at 8 points around the planet, Troy reported. I can create focused gravitational distortions that will pull enemy craft off course or prevent them from maintaining stable orbits. Up in the Zephyrian command ship, the tactical situation was becoming increasingly clear. The humans had created a layered defense system that could engage targets at multiple ranges with various types of weapons. More importantly, they had done it in less than an hour using equipment that was never meant for military purposes. Commander Zelthera was receiving reports from her ship captains that painted a disturbing picture. The human defense network was not just functional, it was sophisticated. The cadets had created overlapping fields of fire, redundant systems, and backup plans for their backup plans. Commander, our combat computers are projecting significant casualties if we attempt an assault, reported Captain Velmar from the 3rd Attack Vessel. The human defensive positions can engage multiple targets simultaneously while maintaining coordinated fire patterns. What about their weak points? Zelthera asked. That's the problem, Velmar replied. They don't seem to have any significant weak points. Their system has multiple redundancies. Even if we destroy half their positions, the remaining defenses can still cover the entire planet. The most troubling aspect of the human defense was its adaptability. The Zephyrians had been monitoring human communications for the entire hour, and they could hear the cadets constantly discussing improvements and modifications. The The defense system was literally evolving as they watched. Amy Carter had become the central coordination point for the entire Planetary network. From her position in the communications center, she was managing information flow between 16 defensive positions, multiple manufacturing sites, and various support systems. All positions report ready status, Amy announced. We have full planetary coverage with overlapping fire zones, active shielding, and continuous targeting data. Manufacturing is producing ammunition and upgrades ahead of schedule. Jake Morrison received Amy's report and felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. An hour ago, they had been students running training exercises. Now they were operating a planetary defense system that could challenge an entire enemy fleet. But what impressed the Zephyrian observers most was not the technology the humans had created. It was the way they worked together. Every cadet understood their role in the larger system. They shared information instantly, supported each other's efforts, and treated the defense of their world as a collective responsibility. The humans had not just built weapons, they had created a community of warriors who functioned as a single, coordinated force. Each individual contributed their unique skills while supporting the success of the whole group. Lauren Reed's shield system was now operating at maximum efficiency, covering 80% of the planet with overlapping energy barriers. Kevin Zhang's manufacturing operation was producing upgrades faster than they could be installed. Nicole Davis's targeting system was tracking all 12 enemy ships with precision that rivaled military-grade equipment. By the 55-minute mark, the Academy's defensive capabilities exceeded those of many established military installations. The cadets had turned a training facility into a fortress that could defend itself against a significant military force. Commander Zelthara stared at her tactical displays and realized that her invasion plan was no longer viable. The humans had done something that no other species in her experience had ever accomplished. They had turned complete disadvantage into effective defense through nothing but creativity, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat. The question now was not whether the humans could defend their world. The question was whether the Zephyrian Empire wanted to fight a species capable of such remarkable adaptation under pressure. Commander Zelthara stood in the command center of her flagship, watching tactical displays that showed a situation she had never encountered in 2 decades of conquest. The human academy below had become a military fortress in 57 minutes, and her invasion fleet was facing the possibility of actual defeat. The bridge crew worked in tense silence around her. Every officer understood that their mission had changed from a simple intelligence-gathering operation into something far more complicated. They had come to study the weaknesses of human military training, but instead they had discovered capabilities that challenged the Zephyrian Empire's entire understanding of warfare. Subcommander Corthell approached with the latest tactical analysis, his expression grim. "Commander, our battle computers have run every possible attack scenario. The human defensive network can inflict severe damage on our fleet regardless of our approach vector." Zelthara took the datapad and studied the projections. The numbers were worse than she had feared. Even with their technological advantages, the Zephyrian fleet would lose at least 4 ships in any assault attempt. The human cadets had created overlapping defensive positions that could engage multiple targets while supporting each other with coordinated fire. "What about their ammunition supplies?" she asked. "That's another problem," Corthell replied. "They're manufacturing additional ammunition and weapons components in real time. Our intelligence suggested they would run out of supplies within minutes of beginning any fight. Instead, they're producing more resources than they're consuming." The manufacturing capability was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the human response. Kevin Zhang's improvised production system was creating not just ammunition, but entirely new equipment. The humans were literally building a stronger defense system while under threat. Captain Velmar's voice came through the communication system from the 3rd attack ship. "Commander, the human targeting systems are now tracking our vessels with military-grade precision. They know our exact positions and are calculating firing solutions for weapons that shouldn't be able to reach us." Nicole Davis had indeed accomplished something remarkable. Her connection of flight simulators to astronomical equipment had given the cadets targeting capability that rivaled the Zephyrian ship's own sensors. The humans could see everything the alien fleet was doing and were prepared to respond to any aggressive action. But the technological achievements were not what worried Zelthara most. What troubled her was the way the humans worked together. In over 40 conquest campaigns, she had never seen a species coordinate so effectively under pressure. The cadets were functioning as a single military unit despite having no official command structure. "How many other human worlds have similar capabilities?" she asked Korthel. "Unknown, Commander. Our intelligence assumed this was a simple training facility with limited defensive potential. If their students can do this with basic equipment, we have no reliable information about what their actual military forces can accomplish." This was the question that had been growing in Zelthara's mind since the human response began. The Zephyrian Empire had based their invasion plans on the assumption that humans were a typical species with predictable military capabilities. But typical species did not turn training academies into planetary fortresses in under an hour. On the planet below, the cadets were putting the finishing touches on their defensive preparations. Jake Morrison stood in his improvised command center, coordinating with defensive positions across 4 continents. The communication network had evolved into something that resembled a professional military command structure. "All positions report full readiness," Amy Carter announced from the communications center. "We have complete planetary coverage, manufacturing is exceeding production targets, and our shield systems are operating at maximum efficiency." Jake felt a surge of pride as he listened to the reports from his fellow cadets. They had accomplished something extraordinary, but he also understood that their success would be measured by whether they could actually defend their world against 12 enemy warships. Lisa Harper's plasma cannon arrays were now capable of engaging targets at ranges that exceeded their original specifications by 300%. Her weapon modifications had turned training equipment into genuine military hardware. More importantly, she had shared her techniques with every other engineering student on the planet. "The focused plasma arrays are ready for orbital engagement," Lisa reported. "We can deliver coordinated fire from 47 different positions simultaneously. The targeting computer shows 92% hit probability for stationary targets." Troy Martinez's gravity manipulation system had become even more sophisticated. Working with the physics team, he had created gravitational fields that could be used offensively as well as defensively. The system could trap enemy ships, redirect their weapons fire, or even pull them into collision courses with each other. "Gravity well generators are operational at 12 strategic points," Troy announced. "I can create focused distortions that will disrupt enemy ship movements or deflect incoming fire away from our defensive positions." Kevin Zhang's manufacturing operation had expanded beyond anyone's expectations. His team was now producing not just ammunition and spare parts, but entirely new defensive systems. The improvised factory was creating additional plasma cannons, sensor arrays, and communication equipment at a rate that kept pace with the growing defensive network. "Manufacturing output is exceeding our requirements," Kevin reported. "We're producing enough equipment to establish additional defensive positions if needed. The mining robots are delivering raw materials faster than we can process them. But perhaps the most significant development was Lauren Reed's shield system. Her planetary barriers had evolved from simple electromagnetic fields into a sophisticated defensive network that could adapt to different types of attacks. The system could focus additional protection on areas under assault while maintaining coverage across the entire planet. "Shield generators are operating at optimal efficiency," Lauren announced. "The electromagnetic barriers can absorb energy weapons fire and deflect physical projectiles. I can redirect power to strengthen specific areas if we detect incoming attacks." Up in the Zephyrian fleet, Captain Morthek from the 7th attack ship was reporting his own analysis of the human defensive capabilities. His ship specialized in assault tactics, and his assessment was particularly troubling. "Commander, the human positions are mutually supporting with overlapping fields of fire. We cannot attack individual targets without exposing ourselves to coordinated defensive fire from multiple positions. Their defensive network has no significant weak points." Captain Jelvara from the 2nd ship added her own concerns. "The human shield system can adapt to different attack patterns. Our weapons will be less effective against targets that can modify their defenses in real time." The tactical reality was becoming clear to every captain in the fleet. The human cadets had not just built a defensive system. They had created a military installation that could adapt, evolve, and improve its capabilities even during combat. Commander Zelthara listened to the reports from her ship captains and realized that her mission had fundamentally changed. She had come to study human weaknesses, but instead she had discovered a species that could turn any disadvantage into an advantage through creativity and determination. The Zephyrian Empire's conquest strategy depended on fighting predictable enemies with known capabilities. But humans were neither predictable nor limited by conventional thinking. They could take equipment designed for one purpose and modify it for completely different uses. More importantly, they could coordinate their efforts without the rigid command structures that most species required. The cadets had organized themselves into an effective military force through nothing but shared determination and mutual support. "Commander," Corthell said quietly, "if we attack this world and suffer significant casualties, other human worlds will learn about our capabilities and intentions. They will have time to prepare defenses that could be even more effective than what we're seeing here." This was the strategic consideration that worried Zelthara most. The Zephyrian Empire's advantage had always been surprise and overwhelming force applied against unprepared enemies. But humans who knew they were under threat could apparently create formidable defenses using whatever resources they had available. If the Empire attacked this academy and lost ships, the human government would know that aliens were hostile and would begin preparing for war. And if human students could build planetary defenses in an hour, what could human military engineers accomplish with months or years of preparation? Commander Zelthara stared at the blue and green world below and realized that her next decision would determine the future relationship between the Zephyrian Empire and humanity. She could order an attack that might succeed, but would certainly alert the humans to the alien threat. Or she could withdraw and report that humanity was too dangerous to attack without overwhelming force. The choice would define not just this mission, but the Empire's entire approach to the human problem. At exactly 58 minutes after the initial alert, Commander Zelthara made a decision that would echo through Zephyrian military history for generations. She turned to her communication officer and spoke words that no one on the bridge expected to hear. "All ships prepare for immediate withdrawal from this system," she ordered. "We are abandoning this operation." The bridge fell silent. In 43 conquest campaigns, Zelthara had never retreated from a target. Her officers stared at her with expressions ranging from confusion to disbelief. Sub-Commander Corthell was the first to find his voice. "Commander, are you certain? We still have superior numbers and technology." Zelthara looked at the tactical displays showing the human defensive network. The cadets below had created something that challenged every assumption the Zephyrian Empire held about warfare and species behavior. More importantly, they had demonstrated capabilities that suggested attacking humanity would be far more costly than anyone had anticipated. "Look at what they accomplished in less than an hour," she said to her bridge crew. "These are students, not soldiers. If their children can build planetary defenses using training equipment, what do you think their actual military can do when they have time to prepare?" The question hung in the air as her officers considered the implications. The human response had not just been effective, it had been innovative in ways that the Zephyrians had never encountered. The cadets had turned disadvantages into advantages and created solutions that no one could have predicted. "If we attack this world and lose even one ship, every human government will know that hostile aliens exist," Zelthara continued. "They will begin preparing defenses across their entire territory. We would face not just this academy, but hundreds of worlds ready for war." Captain Velmar's voice came through the communication system. "Commander, the tactical computers confirm your assessment. Human defensive capabilities appear to scale with available time and resources. Giving them advance warning would be strategically disastrous." The withdrawal order was transmitted to all 12 ships in the Zephyrian fleet. One by one, the vessels began moving away from the human world, their cloaking systems maintaining invisibility as they departed. The reconnaissance mission was over, but its implications would reshape the Empire's entire approach to expansion. On the planet below, the Cadets maintained their defensive positions for several more hours. Amy Carter continued monitoring the sensor readings from the communications center, tracking the unknown contacts as they moved away from the planet. All positions, this is Communications Central, Amy announced. The unknown contacts are departing the system. Maintain readiness, but it appears the immediate threat is over. Jake Morrison received the update while standing in his improvised command center. Around him, his fellow cadets had proven that human determination and creativity could overcome seemingly impossible odds. They had built a planetary defense system that had successfully deterred an enemy fleet without firing a single shot. All squads maintained positions until relieved by regular military forces, Jake ordered. Keep all defensive systems active and continue monitoring for additional threats. The response from defensive positions across the planet was immediate and professional. The cadets understood that their job was not finished until proper military authorities arrived to take control of the situation. 6 hours after the initial alert, Admiral Patricia Stone arrived with a Terran Defense Force squadron consisting of 8 military vessels. The Admiral had been dispatched from the nearest naval base after receiving the Academy's emergency transmission, but she had not expected to find what awaited her. Admiral Stone was a veteran officer with 30 years of military experience. She had commanded defensive operations, assault missions, and peacekeeping assignments across human space. But she had never seen anything like the improvised defensive network that the cadets had created. From the bridge of her flagship, the Admiral studied sensor readings that showed a sophisticated military installation covering an entire planet. The defensive positions, shield generators, and manufacturing facilities represented capabilities that exceeded many established military bases. How many professional military personnel are operating these systems? Admiral Stone asked her tactical officer. According to our communications with the Academy, all defensive positions are operated by cadets, the officer replied. Approximately 200 students created this entire network using training equipment and spare parts. Admiral Stone stared at the tactical display in silence. She had reviewed the initial emergency transmission from the Academy, but she had assumed that regular military forces had responded to assist the cadets. The idea that students had built planetary defenses using improvised equipment was almost impossible to believe. "Get me a communication link with the senior cadet in charge," she ordered. Jake Morrison was still coordinating defensive operations when his radio crackled with an incoming transmission. "Cadet Morrison, this is Admiral Stone, Terran Defense Force. I understand you're the senior cadet coordinating planetary defense." "Yes, Admiral," Jake replied. "We have maintained full defensive readiness since the unknown contacts departed. All positions are prepared for immediate action if needed." "Cadet, I need you to explain how you built this defensive network. Our sensors show capabilities that rival established military installations." Jake looked around at his fellow cadets who were still maintaining their positions with professional discipline. "Admiral, we used available Academy resources and modified them for defensive purposes. Every cadet contributed their specialized knowledge to create a coordinated system." Over the next hour, Admiral Stone received detailed reports from each cadet team leader. Lisa Harper explained her plasma cannon modifications. Kevin Zhang described his improvised manufacturing system. Nicole Davis outlined her targeting network. Troy Martinez detailed his gravity manipulation weapons. Lauren Reed presented her planetary shield technology. Each report revealed innovations that professional military engineers had never considered. The cadets had approached their problems without preconceived notions about what was possible, leading them to solutions that conventional thinking would have dismissed. These modifications and techniques need to be studied and implemented across the entire Defense Force, Admiral Stone told her staff. These cadets have revolutionized planetary defense doctrine in a single afternoon. The Academy on Kepler 442b was immediately designated as a priority research facility. The improvised defensive systems were analyzed, documented, and integrated into official military planning. More importantly, the cadets' innovative approaches were incorporated into training programs across human space. Jake Morrison and his fellow cadets were fast-tracked through their remaining Academy courses and graduated with full military honors. Most went on to distinguished careers in the Terran Defense Force, where their experience in creative problem-solving under pressure made them valuable officers. Lisa Harper became a renowned military engineer, developing new weapon systems based on her improvised modifications. Kevin Zhang revolutionized military logistics with his work on rapid manufacturing systems. Nicole Davis advanced targeting technology through her integration of civilian equipment with military applications. 6 months after the incident, the Zephyrian Empire made official first contact with humanity. Commander Zelthera, now serving as a diplomatic liaison, led a peaceful mission to establish formal relations between their species. The first meeting took place at the Academy on Kepler 442b, where the improvised defensive systems had been preserved, as both a functional installation and a historical monument. Commander Zelthera toured the facilities with Admiral Stone and several of the cadets who had built the original defenses. "Your species demonstrated capabilities that changed our entire approach to interstellar relations," Zelthera explained to the human delegation. "We came expecting to find weakness, but instead we discovered strength we had never encountered." The Academy was eventually renamed the Morrison Defense Institute in honor of the cadets' achievements. The facility became a center for advanced military research and training, where future officers learned to find creative solutions to impossible problems. A monument was erected at the Academy's main entrance, bearing the inscription, "1 hour to save a world, a lifetime to perfect the art." The memorial honored not just the specific achievement of the cadets, but the human spirit of innovation and determination that had prevented an interstellar war. The Zephyrian Empire abandoned all plans for human conquest and instead focused their expansion on uninhabited systems. Commander Zelthera often reflected on the day when a group of students had unknowingly changed the course of galactic history through nothing more than creativity, teamwork, and the refusal to accept that their situation was hopeless. The incident became a defining moment in human military doctrine, proving that victory often belonged not to the side with the best equipment, but to the side with the most adaptable thinking.